Why your epoxy resin always fails. Your last epoxy pour came out tacky, cloudy, or cracked, and it wasn't luck. It was chemistry. Epoxy is a time two-part reaction that makes its own heat, and respecting the ratio, temperature, depth, and cure time is what separates a flawless finish from a ruined one. Get the mix ratio right. Epoxy is stoichiometric chemistry. Resin and hardener must be an exact ratio, usually 2:1 or 1:1 by weight not volume, and any deviation never fully cures. The label prints the ratio by weight, so measuring by volume in cups throws off the balance, leaving a tacky surface forever, an unsavable mistake. Mix for the full 3 minutes, constantly scraping the bottom and sides of your cup to break up unmixed resin trapped against the walls. After 3 minutes, perform the double cup. Pour the mixture into a fresh, clean cup and mix it one more time to catch any unmixed resin. The double cup is the final safeguard. Ship it and you'll pour a batch with soft or tacky spots because some resin never participated in the chemical reaction. Sand and prep the surface. Epoxy doesn't glue, it mechanically interlocks with the wood surface, so a slick or dusty surface has nothing to grip. You'll get fish eyes, the lamination, or bubbles peeling away. Raw wood needs 120 to 220 grit sanding to a matte finish. This key gives the epoxy texture to grip, and skipping it dooms the bond before you pour. After sanding, vacuum to remove all dust and wipe with a tack cloth, a cloth tacky enough to grab airborne grit, because dust trapped in curing epoxy becomes ugly bumps. Wipe down with mineral spirits or degreaser to kill any shop oils, because epoxy won't stick to a greasy surface. For best results, brush on a thin seal coat before the main pour. A diluted epoxy fills the porous grain so air can't bubble up through your work. Seal cracks and voids first. Wood has hidden air pockets and knots, grain, and cracks. When you pour epoxy over them, trapped air bubbles up through the liquid surface for hours, leaving a cloudy mess. If a crack goes all the way through the wood, unsealed epoxy will drain right through the underside, leaving a sinkhole on top that no amount of sanding fixes. Before the main pour, seal all knots, cracks, and voids with a first coat of epoxy or wood filler. This isolation layer traps air before you pour deep. For through cracks, tape the underside with duct tape or painter's tape before pouring. This dam keeps epoxy from leaking out and leaving a void. Right after pouring, sweep a heat gun or torch across the surface at a low angle. The heat pops surface bubbles before they set and leave pits. Respect pour depth and heat. Epoxy is exothermic. It generates heat as it cures, so a pour that's too thick traps that heat, and the reaction accelerates, overheating, yellowing, and cracking the whole batch. A standard coating or tabletop epoxy has a max single-layer depth of around 1/8 inch. A deep pour epoxy can handle 2 inches or more. Check your product's label before you pour. If you need thick fill, pour in multiple layers, letting each cure partially before adding the next. This spreads the exothermic heat over time and prevents runaway overheating. Room temperature matters. Epoxy cures best between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything colder slows the reaction and traps bubbles. Anything hotter accelerates it and risks overheating. If your resin is cold or viscous, warm the bottles in a water bath to lower viscosity and speed the reaction. But keep the room at 70 to 75 degrees F to control the cure. Work in warm, dust-free space. Cold epoxy is thick and slow to cure, which traps tiny bubbles in the liquid. They solidify as dimples and clouds instead of popping out of the surface. Cold curing also invites amine blush, a greasy white film that forms as some epoxy types cure. You'll have to sand it off later, losing your glossy finish. Airborne dust is your enemy. Our room temperature pour stays open and tacky for 2 to 4 hours before it sets, and any dust that lands hardens in place permanently. Tent or cover your pour with a cardboard box, plastic sheet, or dust cover. Anything that blocks airborne particles while still allowing vapor to escape. After pouring in a warm, dust-free space, pass a heat gun or torch over the surface to pop remaining bubbles and accelerate the exothermic reaction slightly, sealing the surface. Wait the full cure before handling. Epoxy becomes solid and handleable in 24 hours, but that's not fully cured. It's still soft and will accept fingerprints, gouges, or cracks if you stress it early. Most epoxies need 72 hours, 3 days before you can safely demold or remove the piece from its form without risking cracks or damage to the edges. Full hardness and scratch resistance take 7 days. Sanding or finishing before then will gouge the surface, roughen the gloss, or leave white scratch marks. Once you've nailed ratio, prep, depth, and temperature, waiting is the last free step. Patience costs you nothing, but saves every hour of work you've already done. Mark your pour date on the piece or a calendar, and check it at 24 hours for handling, 72 hours for demolding, and 7 days before sanding or finishing. Epoxy isn't a glue. It's a timed chemical reaction. Respect the ratio, the temperature, the depth, and the cure clock, and a glass-clear finish stops being luck and becomes a guarantee. Before your next pour, read the label for the exact mix ratio and max pour depth. Stage your workspace warm and dust-free, and commit to the full 7-day cure. Subscribe to stay updated on more beginner projects that teach you to nail the fundamentals.